hello. That went off really quickly. Welcome to the house. And of course, I am talking about the Alumni House. My name is Matt.
Yeah, I'm the Quacker.
Quacker, how are you doing this evening?
Man, I'm doing good. It's another start to the week, right?
It is another start to the week. Monday Night Football's on and all is well.
Yeah,
We had
two games on.
2 games on, yeah. And we had a as you will see in the description if you are a reader of video descriptions, we had a wacky weekend in college football, and we're going to talk about all the wackiness in the Southern Five. But before we do so, Quacker, why don't you catch us up on the news and notes around the leagues?
Yeah. So let's start with the biggest news out of college football from this weekend. Sam Pittman is no longer employed with the University of Arkansas, as
Which Chad has
they.
never been happier in his life to say that, by
I,
the way.
I'm not. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of his as a head coach, but I didn't have anything personal against the guy. I didn't think he was a great head coach. Bobby Petrino has been named as the interim head coach, and they're going to give him a chance to earn the job. And in
Which he
this,
likely will, if we're being honest.
yeah, and he's already fired 3 defensive assistants, including the defensive coordinator. Now this is interesting timing with the Pittman firing, and there's a lot of speculation as to why. And with this loss this past Saturday to Notre Dame, his overall win percentage dropped below winning. So his percentage is .485, which cut in half his buyout from all reports. So
Well, but don't you think
that's
also too though that it could be because I think that makes sense obviously for the buyout, but don't you think that it probably also had to do a little bit with the fifth game in the new landscape of college football?
I don't know. I think
Because 4 games you can redshirt, so you can lose your whole roster if you fire your coach after 4, which is the main reason why I
yeah.
think Billy Napier still has a job.
I mean, from what I was reading, from what the AD said, he said he felt like the Pittman had kind of lost the team some. I don't buy that at all, especially the way they've been playing the first, 4 games of the season. Yeah, they've lost 2. They're both close losses. I mean, I play here to play there, and they're 4-0 going into this game.
Well,
So
an argument could be made that Marcus Freeman has done more at Notre Dame in the 3 and just over a quarter years that he's been there than Brian Kelly did. Brian Kelly got to, was it 1 or 2 national championships? I know he got to 2 playoffs, but I think he only made it to 1 national championship. But I could be wrong about that.
I think so too.
But my point in Marcus Freeman is I don't think there's any shame in losing the way they did. So you're probably right. It probably is the buyout. I don't know that he lost the team. And look, that game for the first quarter, I mean, Arkansas looked prepared,
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I was obviously joking. Quacker's not happy that anybody loses their job unless they're just a jerk. But we have a running joke on this show. I have long felt that Sam Pittman's a little better coach than Quacker, and ultimately it didn't work out. So it looks like Quacker may have been right. But gosh, man, hard to root against that guy. So.
Oh, he has absolutely a fantastic personality. And probably an awesome person to hang out with.
Yeah.
Sit out on the back porch, drinking a beer, smoking a cigar. Probably can't find anybody better. But just as a head coach, I didn't have that feel.
Yeah. Well,
that
it didn't work for sure.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, and ultimately it didn't work out for this one either, but Ed Ogeron had a shot and a half before he got to excuse me, before he got to LSU, of course, he was the Ole Miss head coach back when Brent Schaefer was the quarterback in the middle to late 2000s, somewhere in that neighborhood. Was he before or after Houston Nutt? I always get that order confused.
Before.
I thought he was after. See, I thought he went to Ole Miss when Houston Nutt was at Arkansas, but that was a long time ago. But then he got an interim shot at USC, and a lot of the players wanted him to get the job, and he didn't get it. Then he got an interim job at LSU, did get the job, and won a title. And so it took him to his third spot. So I bet Pittman gets a job somewhere. Maybe not as a head coach. Yeah, if he wants to. But I think most of these guys want to. But I'm rooting for him.
The reason I say it's because I had read in a couple of spots where he had contemplated retiring before this season.
Well, and he may. You know, I don't know what age guy he is, but I would imagine at least 60s. So.
Oh yeah. You know, we had some more coaching shakeup. Georgia Southern has relieved offensive coordinator Ryan Applin from his duties. Tight ends coach Brian Score is taking over as acting OC. Now, it didn't say he was fired from the team, but if you're relieved from the OC duties, that would seem like you're probably not with the team anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure, but and then in injury news, Alabama linebacker, starting linebacker Quay Russell is out indefinitely with a broken foot, and that was announced today.
Yeah.
So that is all the coaching news, all the football news I have for right now.
All right, so I didn't tell Quacker about this. I'm going to pull a curveball. So I want us to start a running list, all right? Not of teams or programs that we think are going to be without a coach at the end of the season, but inevitably we've reached that point now. You know, we have a handful of firings. Excuse me, I've got the sniffles. We've had a handful of firings, but what I want us to do is start developing a list, starting tonight, of coaches. They can be any type of coach that we think are going to be the prime candidates for new jobs. Now, each of us can have our own criteria, and I'm not talking about assigning a coach to a job. I'm just talking about coaches that are going to be the main targets for programs. Does that make sense? So, like, for instance, I'll give you an example. I think Marcus Freeman will be a target. I'm not saying Marcus Freeman will leave. I think Marcus Freeman will be a target of some major programs. So I'll go first to kind of set the tone. But I think that there are 5 guys I've got in my mind. Well, there's really 6 because I wasn't thinking about this guy. No, I have 8. I have 8 guys. All right. So tier 1, I'm going to put Dan Lanning. And listen, I don't personally think Oregon is a place you leave. I think Oregon is a place you go to be there forever. But every coach since the guy before Chip Kelly, and I always forget his name, but he went on to be the AD. He retired. He was there for a long time and built the program up. Every coach since then who's had success has left on purpose. So while I don't think Oregon really is a destination you go to and leave, it's happened a lot. So there's precedent there. So Dan Lanning's on tier 1. I've got Marcus Freeman on tier 1. Don't think he'll leave, but that's not what we're doing necessarily. Now, I will say this. In my head canon, there are a couple of guys that aren't going to be candidates. So, for instance, I think Dillingham from ASU is not a candidate because he played at ASU. I don't think he's going to leave. Kirby Smart's not a candidate. He played at ASU. A couple other guys who aren't candidates because they have top tier jobs would be Sark at Texas, Brian Kelly at LSU. Now, I'm not saying that these guys couldn't get fired. They're not on the trajectory to get fired, but I'm just saying, like, what I'm not saying, they're not eligible in my mind because I don't think they would leave because they're already at a job. Ryan Day, same thing. On tier 2, I'm going to put James Franklin. Think he may want to change, and I think some guys will go after him. I'm going to put Jeff Lebby, who has quickly risen. I'm going to put Signetti, which is obvious. Everyone knows he is going to be the target of some big-time jobs. I'm going to put...
His age may be a determining factor in that because he's already...
Right, but he's 64, and that is a thing, okay? And I don't want to pretend it's not, but I think he wants a job. So I think there could be some programs that decide that they want to they need him like as a bridge, right? And so hold on, I wrote down these other ones. So that's why I have him there. Jed Fish is going to be on tier 2 as well. But I do agree. I do agree with you. And this is just mine. So I want you to come up with yours too. And I've got, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Almost done. I have 2 more. Let me find them. Sorry, guys. Live broadcast. This one's obvious. Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is tier 2, and now I think he's tier 1 for a lot of people. But I'm just saying, like Dan Lanning, Marcus Freeman are guys that are only going to leave for jobs they can win national championships in like 1 to 2 years. Jobs that I feel like they could be in the hunt for, right? If James Franklin becomes available, one of those guys could conceivably go to Penn State. If a top-tier SEC school, Auburn, Florida, maybe Clemson. I doubt Clemson. I know they're ACC. Don't yell at me. But if Florida State falls apart, that would be a destination where I think one of those guys go. I think the jobs that they would leave for is very small because we know certain jobs are not going to be open. LSU's not going to be open. Texas isn't going to be open. Georgia's not going to be open. Alabama's not going to be open. So that's why it's more like it's not really tiers. It's like I feel like there's a much smaller list of schools that these guys would even consider. So I've got tier 1 Dan Lanning, Marcus Freeman. I've got James Franklin, Jeff Lebby, Kurt Signetti, Jed Fish, Lane Kiffin, and Golish from South Florida. All right. Now, I put you on the spot. Have you had time to think of a couple?
I got a couple. All right. Give me just a second here. All right. I'm not going too deep into this, but all right. I agree with Dan Lanning. I also don't think he's going to leave. But he's one of those top tier coaches that
I agree, but every Oregon coach I've said that with. I said that with all of them, and they all left. And that's the thing. That's why I feel like there must be something about the Oregon job that eventually coaches get tired of. And I don't know what that is. But I tend to agree that this may be the instance where Dan Lanning doesn't leave. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but continue.
No, that's all right. Tony Elliott, who's the head coach at Virginia. I can see him being.
Wasn't he a NASCAR driver?
No.
That was a joke. There was a Tony Elliott. Yeah. He was a NASCAR driver. You don't remember Tony Elliott? He used to be on SportsCenter all the time for pitching fits.
Tony Stewart.
Oh, Tony Stewart. Whatever. Chase Elliott. That's how big of a NASCAR fan I am.
Yeah. Lane Kiffin, I was talking to my boss today. You know, he's an Ole Miss alumnus, and he doesn't think Lane will leave for anything other than an NFL job. And the reason is, like his brother is on staff with them there at Ole Miss. They live literally like their houses are right in front of each other. Like they can literally just walk to each other's house. His daughter goes to Ole Miss. His son is playing um, football there in Oxford. Um, Him and his wife have reconciled. Apparently, they're back together.
I
They
didn't
had gotten
know they were.
divorced.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I didn't either.
No, I didn't know they
Me and
got
my boss were
divorced.
talking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, several years ago. Now his oldest daughter is out at USC. So his wife or ex-wife, whatever she is, like she's spending some time out there to be with her. But they're very happy there in Oxford. So outside of like a premier NFL job coming open, he doesn't think he'll leave, and I tend to agree because he's had some chances to leave. Um,
Here's what I
it,
think
it
about Lane Kiffin, because his brother could go anywhere he goes. That's not a deterrent, right? His daughter would be the biggest hangup, I think. However, I think there's one job that he would leave for, and I don't even know if this job would be interested in him because they have an idiot for an athletic director who basically I don't even know how to describe it. I don't think he would go after him because he's not a very good AD.
Florida.
But I think he would leave for Florida because of his Tampa connections. I don't think he cares one lick about Florida. I think he has Tampa connections with his dad. He grew up there. You know what I mean? So here's the other thing, though. Every school says, yeah, our coach wouldn't leave except for an NFL job because they've had chances to leave. And then they all eventually leave. You know, like unless you're Alabama, unless you're LSU, unless you're Texas, unless you're Ohio State, like as much as an Ole Miss alum would want this to be the case, Ole Miss is not a destination job. And their alum, they have a lot of doctors and a lot of lawyers. They don't have the money of the top tier schools. They don't have Auburn money. And they don't have Florida money. And Auburn and Florida, I mentioned those two because they don't have the money that Alabama or LSU have. Maybe LSU. I don't know as much about LSU, but I mean, all of these programs have a
LSU's
lot of
got
money.
deep pockets.
Well, no. What I'm saying is they all have a lot of money. I'm talking relatively speaking, right?
Yeah.
So, because a lot of these schools, like for instance, in the state of Alabama, Auburn is the ag school and Alabama is the medical school and the law school. And that's not to say that you can't do one or both at the other, but that's how that works. And so Alabama is inevitably, they have deeper pockets than does Auburn. I don't know the situation in Louisiana with their schools, which is why I said that. Like for instance, Florida has deeper pockets than Florida State, but it's because their alumni are generally, their successful alumni are like generally richer than the successful alumni at Florida State because most of them, not all of them, Myron Rolle was a Rhodes Scholar there and an athlete, but most of them wind up being either in some arts field like music, they have an excellent music program, or in education, neither of which are you likely to make a lot of money. So that's not me bashing Auburn or Florida State or Mississippi State. Just in general, like for instance, South Carolina has more money than Clemson. You'd think it's the other way around, but Clemson's the ag school. And so now Clemson fans would have you not believe that. But I mean, it's just how it works in most states. LSU's unique because they have one big university and a ton of smaller universities. So that's why I made that comment about that. But do I think Florida will offer him? I don't know. I don't know if he would be a good fit there. Do I think he would leave? I don't know. But what I do think is he's got a situation that makes sense for him to stay. I think if there's one job he would leave for, it's Florida, but not because Florida's his dream job, but because he's got roots there and he's got connections there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing. You and I were talking a couple weeks ago. Same thing with John Gruden. I don't think John Gruden will be a good college coach. I don't think he should be. He's going to be a coach in the SEC next year. I mean, he's basically all but said it. Florida makes the most sense for John Gruden. I don't know that Florida wants John Gruden at all, but it makes the most sense because he lives in Tampa and he spent most of his career. I'm not just talking about coaching, but he spent most of his coaching life living in Tampa in the offseason. So So that's all I'm saying about that. And I didn't intend to make it about Florida because it's not about Florida. I think it's about these guys having roots there. But all right, talk about your other ones for me real quick.
All right. Now this is gonna shock you, Dabo.
That
Um,
doesn't shock me at all, like at
you
all.
don't.
I The
Okay.
reason I didn't put him on there is because I don't know if he's got the energy to be good anywhere else. But
I
that's a
mean,
good one because he'll be a good target somewhere.
yeah, yeah. And lastly, and this is one that I was like, I don't want to put this on there, but uh, Charlie Huff, Southern's coach. Um, he was hot after last year. He's already got him off to a 3-2 start. I mean, this is the most games they've won since the 2022 season, which you think it's only 3 years, but it's been a long
He
time.
might. I don't you think though that with all the Marshall players he brought over, that he may need another year to gain a little bit more momentum because he's definitely trending up. But I don't know in the
I mean, I've
group
already
of
seen his name attached to Virginia Tech as just a possible candidate.
I still think Shane Beamer's going to go there. I know we disagree on that, but I think unless South Carolina doubles down on some sort of extension with him, I think he's going to go there. I know he loves South Carolina, but he played for Virginia Tech. It's not just about his father's legacy. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that Charlie Huff is a bad choice. I think he's a great choice. I'm just saying I don't know that there's a lot of group of 6 schools you would leave Southern Miss for. So he's probably waiting for a power job. I mean, maybe I don't know what his ties are, so I don't know if he has ties to Virginia Tech.
He's from the Virginia area,
Okay.
so
Yeah. Well, it's
he's actually
interesting.
from Maryland, but that's close enough. And then he played at Hampton, which is in Virginia. So
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna add John Gruden. I forgot about him, and let me be clear. I think John Gruden is one of the funniest personalities on the internet. I have no idea if he will be a good college coach. I'm not saying I would not want him for my team because he's never proven it. But you got to put him on there because he's going to be a head coach next year. I mean, we know that's going to happen. We just don't know where.
Arkansas.
Well, before the season started, I heard people talking about him in Arkansas. So I think it could happen. But I heard an interview today talking about how Arkansas has got to figure out a way to up their NIL money because, by the way, Arkansas is similar to Louisiana because they have one big university and a bunch of smaller universities. But they've got to figure out a way to pump up their NIL because they're lacking way behind the rest of the SEC or most of the SEC in football. But they like if they were to win a national championship in baseball or basketball next year, nobody on earth would be surprised. Is basically what the guy was saying, but not football. So, and Arkansas had success in football, man. They've been to more, and I'm going to say this, and if you're from Mississippi and you're not Quacker, I know Quacker won't be offended by this, but if you're from Mississippi, don't be offended. Arkansas has been to more SEC championships than the state of Mississippi combined. So let that sink in. And the answer to that is only 2. They might have gone to 3, but the state of Mississippi has only been to 1. So, but my point is and that was Mississippi State. And that was kind of a weird year. They kind of backed into it, but they made it. But Arkansas went in 95. They went in 06 for sure when, oddly enough, Gus Malzahn was the offensive coordinator for that team. Do you remember that whole situation? I think it was Ryan Mallett was the Houston that I think was the head coach. Ryan Mallett was the quarterback they wanted. But the deal was if you wanted Ryan Mallett, you had to bring his high school head coach onto staff, and they did. And it was some guy named Gus Malzahn. That's how we have Gus Malzahn in our lives. Do you remember that?
That's
It was
I don't.
It was a weird thing. Yeah.
Um, wasn't wasn't Mallet from like Michigan or something like that?
It might no. Ryan Mallett started his career at Arkansas and then went to Michigan, or maybe it was vice versa. Hold on. I'll put this to bed right now because I am curious if I can get this to go away.
I thought he was from the state of Michigan.
No, you know what? You're right. Ryan Mallett started at Michigan and went to, I know who it was now, but Ryan Mallett started at Michigan and went to Arkansas. I'm talking about Mitch Mustaine.
Okay.
Let me
I was gonna say
verify that. Huh?
because Gus Malzahn does not sound like he's from Michigan. He sounds very, very much like he's from Arkansas or somewhere like that. He's
Mitch
very
Mustaine.
southern.
Yeah, Mitch Mustaine.
Yeah, I remember him vaguely.
Yeah, he didn't really pan out.
He's a pretty big kid, if I remember.
So that's why I got him mixed up with Ryan Mallett because Ryan Mallett wound up at Arkansas, but they were both like 6'6" or 6'7". They were very, very tall. I think that's why maybe in my head I had them like confused.
Mallett had a howitzer for an arm. I mean, he could just explode the ball downfield, but he had a really bad attitude, and that really affected his career trajectory. He had some time in the NFL though, so you know.
Yeah. So Mitch Mustaine went to Springdale High School, and his head coach was Gus Malzahn, and then his offensive coordinator at the University of Arkansas was Gus Malzahn. All right, so I'm gonna little inside baseball for everybody watching, because I don't know how else to do this because we're live. Quacker, I'm gonna let you talk about the first game. I'm gonna go take care of this sniffle. So we're gonna jump into Western Kentucky and Missouri. The score is 27-22. I'm gonna let you take it away, and I'll be right back.
All right, so Western Kentucky went to Missouri State for Missouri State's very first Conference USA football game. Western Kentucky, they played a pretty good game. I mean, they only scored, and neither team scored. It was in the first quarter, but Western Kentucky, they put up over 300 yards passing on the game. Had a kind of complete game, but there was a lot of contention from the Missouri State fans after the game. They were saying that Western Kentucky players were throwing like chewing gum and stuff at the students in the student section, and they tore down all these signs and stuff. And I saw pictures of it where signs have been torn down off the walls there, in front of the student section stuff. But not a good look for Western Kentucky if that was all true. But the game was a good game. It was a close game. All throughout, Missouri State actually outscored Western Kentucky there in the fourth quarter, but it wasn't quite enough to come back to win the game. Looking here at the box score real quick. All throughout the game, it was second quarter. It was Western Kentucky had 10 points to 9. Looks like Western Kentucky had. Missouri State had 3 field goals there in the second quarter. So if they could have found a way to punch one of those in, they win the game there. So they played a good game. They just didn't get in the end zone enough to win. Um, let's see. Yeah. Now Missouri State, they outrushed Western Kentucky. Um, they were outpassed, but Western Kentucky's always been more of a passing team, and their quarterback has got a very much a quarterback name with Maverick McIver. Um, that's a good quarterback name there. You kind of have to be a Maverick sometimes playing quarterback.
All
All
right.
right, and Matt's back.
How far did you make it?
I I BS my way through it. That's hard to not bounce stuff off. I was talking about how Western Kentucky's quarterback's got the perfect name for quarterback. His name was Maverick McIver.
Wow.
Um,
They
yeah,
must have. Man. So his parents must have been born in like the 70s so that they had like perfect 80s,
right.
All right, my mic doesn't want to work. All right. All right, I'm all over the place. Let's move on. Middle Tennessee State 16, Kennesaw State 24. Did you get a chance to watch this one?
I did not. I was watching quite a few games, and then driving over to Hattiesburg. Um, this was not one that was on my radar. I didn't really think it was going to be a good game, and it actually wound up being a pretty good one. I'll try to get the score pulled up here real quick. Is that? That's. Are we still in Conference USA? Yeah.
We are.
Okay. Yeah. Let me get this pulled up real quick. This is. Okay. I hate ESPN sometimes.
Well, the schedule this week was odd because it was all of the conferences like scheduled, they're primarily their best games like at the same time, and it was a little bit annoying.
Mm-hmm.
So watch, like I was telling Quacker before we started, the four games that were of interest to me during the 3 o'clock window, I had them all on multi-view, and by the end of the window, I was only able to eliminate one, and that was the Ohio State Washington game. I still had the other three like on pins and needles, and it was kind of like that all weekend. So
Yeah.
we're probably a little bit less well informed than we normally are, just because of the way the scheduling worked out this week. All the good games were happening, together.
Yeah. I mean, Kennesaw State, if it wasn't for the first quarter, they don't win this game. I mean, they put up 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, and only got a field goal in the fourth quarter to go up by 8 there. But I mean, Middle Tennessee, they're not a good program right now. You kind of feel bad for them. I mean, because for a stretch there, they were a very good program. They were a lot of fun to watch. Um, they were one of those teams that they could score a lot of points in a hurry, and they have fallen off a cliff, and it's hard for them to build back up. I don't really know, what's going on there in um I'm blanking out on the name of the town they're in.
I don't even know.
Murphys
Where is it?
Murfreesboro, I think.
I had a guy that was a year older than me in high school. We were on the football team together. Coy, well, I'm not going to say his last name because I don't want to put somebody on blast like that. But not on blast, but we haven't talked in 20 years, so I'm not going to say his last name. Anyway, he went there gray shirted, but I can't remember. Let me see where that was. Yep, you got it right. Murfreesboro.
Yeah.
But it's not spelled like you would think. It's Murfrees. Borough, Tennessee.
Yeah. I just wanted to say Nashville, but it's like 45 minutes outside of Nashville. And they're really known for like their music programs and stuff. I mean, they have a lot of people who go through there and become like producers and I mean they band members and stuff like that for a lot of country music bands and stuff like that. And um, so they're probably kind of iffy on like their NIL, like what they can bring in NIL wise and stuff like that. But I mean, it's like Kennesaw State is just absolutely killing it financially either. But this was Kennesaw State. I mean, they started 0-2. They're now 3-2, so third straight win, and they start the conference slate 1-0. But they're going to do better than, only scoring in the first quarter and just riding out against a bad team to win.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about the I think when it comes to NIL and the group of 6 teams, I think what it really comes down to is location and recruiting, right? Because I would say most of the group of 6 schools are probably in a similar ballpark. Like, I'm not saying they're all equal, but I think a lot of them are in a similar ballpark because, they just don't generate as much. But where the power comes from is how can you recruit and how can you retain. So there's always a way. And Middle Tennessee State has had they've had success in the past, and like you said, it's been a long time, but we'll see. And by the way, Quacker and I were both right on that, and at the end we'll talk about how our picks were collectively. It was an interesting week. So speaking of picks, the first game that we missed, or that I missed, because Quacker and I did not pick the same team, was Navy hosting Rice. So Navy wins this game 21-13. And I didn't watch this game because it was like not on like a normal channel, but I'm pretty sure Rice scored most of their points at the end because when I was tracking it, it wasn't that close.
It was all in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
They scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. So, Navy, I mean, they did what they had to win. A touchdown in the first, second, and fourth quarters. Just gonna pull up their box score and see what their rushing totals was to see kind of if it was. All right, so they held Rice to 114 yards passing. So I mean that Rice passing offense that has been kind of popping here lately was held in check, and Rice right at 300 yards rushing. And the quarterback had 172 yards passing. So he had a pretty good day passing, except for the one interception he threw. Matt, he was 8 of 13 for 172 yards. So,
jeez.
So his completions were pretty decent links when he was throwing them there. Of course, it doesn't give time possession on here. But, it looks like Navy played ball control, which is what I said they would do because that's the Navy game. They just run the ball, they pound it at you, and they keep your offense off the field. And to me, the only chance that Rice was going to have to win this game was to have that explosive passing offense, and they just didn't have it.
Yeah. Well, I'm proud of them. They fought, unlike their baseball team has been doing. So, for better, for worse, and I always want the service academies to do well. So that's fairly easy. But all right, so let's move on to the Sun Belt. Just one game in the Sun Belt. Marshall 51 at Lafayette, Louisiana Lafayette, 54, and this went to 2 overtimes, and this is the first of what, 6 overtime games we're going to talk about.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, lots and lots of overtime. But so I kept up with this. I didn't get to watch a lot of it. Did you get to see much of it?
No, yeah, I think when this was on is the same time that I was at the Southern Miss game, and I was keeping up with about 4 other games that were on. But this wasn't even periphery because neither team was doing good on to start the season. I mean, they're both sitting at 2-3 right now. After this game, so like neither team was really playing well. So it was not one that I was really looking at going into the weekend as going to be a good game. But it turned out being one of the best ones of the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple of these games wound up being really good. All right, so let's talk about Friday night as we move into the ACC. So Friday night started off with a game that started, I think, at 7 o'clock my time, which was FSU going to Virginia, number 8 FSU. And I have special memories, like an imprinted memory of this game because my dad used to sometimes take me. He would have to go to conferences in Orlando, and sometimes he would take me. So he had to go to a conference, and we left on Thursday. He checked me out of school, and we were listening to the radio that night. This was 1995. I was 9 years old. And on the radio was this team that I knew nothing about, Virginia, playing Florida State. And they beat Florida State. And I'll never, ever, ever forget that because that was they were in the top 5. I don't know what they were ranked, maybe number 2 or 3. But I'll never forget that because my dad was explaining to me how big of a deal that was. And I'd kind of, I never forgot it, but I kind of didn't put the connection together until halftime of this game Friday when Virginia Tech and Florida State are playing because it just seemed or it clicked for me. So that was kind of cool. But Virginia Tech beat Florida State in a good game, but that leads to something that we need to talk about, and we'll come back to the game. We've talked about this in basketball. 19 people were injured in the field storming. I love when teams win games that warrant field stormings. I hate it when it happens. And I legitimately thought there were 3 players right there in the corner of the end zone that I thought were going to get trampled. Because as soon, and it's a miracle they didn't, but 19 players were injured. I don't care what it takes. This has to stop. I'm so happy for Virginia. I'm not blaming anyone in Virginia because the culture right now is if your team wins a big game, you storm the field or the court or whatever. But it's got to stop. It's hurting people. And that's my soapbox on that. You can speak on it if you want, or we can just talk about the game. But it was a great game. That just obviously we found out about that later. So,
yeah, no, I felt the same way. And that was the fastest field storming I've ever seen. I mean, as soon as the player from Virginia, it was just like boom, and I saw a headline it was a Twitter thing. It said, "Rest in peace, Squirrel White. He got trampled to death by the field stormer." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And then I realized it was satire, but only sort of. I mean, no players were hurt, thank goodness. But I mean, and Virginia showing class. I'm sure you've seen this still frame of the Virginia student flipping the double birds at one of the Florida State players as he's coming by. I mean,
I think it was at
your team has just won. Yeah, okay, and your team has just won a huge game. You don't have to, show your class like that. I mean, or lack thereof, really. By doing something like that, go, if you're going to storm the court or storm the field, enjoy the moment with your players, with your with the fans that are on the but leave the other team alone. I'm not a huge fan of the field storming either. It's such a safety issue, and I don't know that you'll see it much in the SEC this year because of the amount of fines. Because it's like it starts at 500,000 now. Like it doesn't build up. It starts at 500,000, and not a lot of schools are willing to pay
and that's
$500,000.
what's funny too. Like, Florida State's done it a handful of times because they've been down on their luck sometimes. The one that surprises me the most is LSU, because I don't know that I've ever seen a court or a field storming at Alabama. I'm not saying there hasn't been one. I don't know that I've seen one. I've seen one at Auburn, but the only one I remember is the kick six. I don't know if I've seen one at Florida. But my point is, there are certain programs that are kind of above that, or should be above that. And there are also certain programs that know how to stop it. So just stop it. Just figure out a way with your security to stop it, because it was a good game, and that's a black mark on an otherwise classic, But Quacker and I are in agreement there. So let's talk about the game itself.
All right, I just looked this up. They were only fined $50,000 for that.
Well, that's not a very big deterrent.
No, it's not. I mean, it was their first offense, but I mean, that's when you had 19 people injured. And I don't know if the ACC is the same way. In the SEC, if Florida storms the field against Florida State gets that money, whatever that fine is. Like it goes to the school that you stormed the field against.
Well, being from the state of Florida and having been to many games at Ben Hill Griffin and at Doak Campbell, and I was surprised that it happened at Florida State, but they have at both of those stadiums, but it'll never happen at Florida because they have every 3 feet they have state troopers, and they stagger them, and at every game they do that, and they put them there at the end of the game. And that's why I was saying I don't think I'd ever seen it there, and I was really surprised when Florida State did it a handful of times, and I was really surprised when LSU did it, But I was more surprised at LSU with LSU because it's like, you're LSU, you've been there, like, calm down. You know? But anyway, all right, so let's talk. Go ahead.
I think like with programs like LSU and stuff, they have tasted so much success when they have a perceived down period. It's the students who always lead it, and they see it from other places, and they think, oh, this is cool. So they just think, well, this is a big win against whoever, so we're going to storm the field. And if you were to really, truly just put your security at the student section, it would stop a lot of it. It's not easy. But the students don't care about the $500,000 fine unless they start getting hit in the financial, in the pocketbook. Like they don't care. It's not their money as they see it. It is, but they don't think of it that way.
But the point is, schools have the ability to stop it. It's just stop it. That's what I'm saying. Is it's like, because I agree with you. The kids, the fans, they don't care. And really, nor should they. I'm not putting this on them. The universities need to stop it. Because they're the ones who, if you are going to have multiple thousands of people in your stadium, you need to be able to accommodate the scenarios. All right, they have disaster scenarios. Have a field storming scenario. Like, there are people whose whole job is to come up with contingencies for stuff like this. Hire a firm to come in and lay out a plan.
Yeah.
I love the spectacle of it, and I love the excitement, and I'm sure that people who have been able to be a part of a field storming, it's exhilarating, but it's dangerous. That's where I'm at. It's like, it's awesome, and it's not a part of the game that I want to lose, but we have to lose it unless we can figure out a way to do it where nobody gets hurt, which I don't know how you do that. So, but all right, let's talk about the game. So, my opinion is Virginia took it to them from start to finish, and that was that. I mean, like FSU fought, and obviously they stayed in it. I think they even took the lead at one point, but Virginia would not go away. Went to 2 overtimes, and Virginia wins the game 46-38. I don't think this is doom for Florida State. I do want to acknowledge one thing for Quacker, though. Before the show last week, when we were about to do our preview, I said to him when we're deciding on these games, I said, "Do you really want to talk about Florida State, Virginia?" I said, "I don't think there's any reason to talk about this game." And he's like, "Yeah, I think Virginia's playing pretty well. I think this is going to be a good game." So kudos to Quacker, because we would not have even talked about that game had that not already been on his radar. Because I was like, "What are we doing?" And then lo and behold, Florida State shows up and gets beat. So congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, just the way Virginia have been playing, like their offense, the points they've been putting up, I just had a feeling, and I almost picked them, and I told you this, I almost picked them, and I didn't, because Florida State's been playing really well too. And I was kicking myself after that game. I was like, man, I should have picked Virginia, because I had the feeling that something could happen. But I just, because Florida State was ranked and had been playing so well themselves, I was like, nah, I think they're going to win. But I knew there was a chance for the upset, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't pick Virginia in this one. It's really good to see Virginia playing well and having a good record again, because I mean they really haven't had a good season in a long time. Like, they haven't been a program of note since like the 90s. They were pretty good. They've had a good season here and there since then, but seeing them have a good, and hopefully they can sustain it over a long period of time, and be a program that's kind of talked about again, because they're for a while there in the 90s they were a good program in the ACC. So seeing them,
they were good 3 years ago. They were in a New Year's Six Bowl 2 years in a row, so it hasn't been that long. 5 years ago, not 3 years ago. But I mean, like, they've had success. They had a guy a couple of years ago who took them to two straight New Year's Six Bowls, like 17 and 18 or 18 and 19.
Well, I know they had Bronco.
No, it wasn't Mendenhall. It was I don't know if it was before or after, but it was in the late teens that they had. But my point is, like, I overall agree with your sentiment, but they have had recent success. It just hasn't.
I don't remember them.
Yeah,
I don't remember them being good like in a while.
Yeah. They were. They went to, well, it's probably because back in 2016, 17, 18, the only thing good about the ACC was Clemson, so there wasn't a lot to pay attention to.
Yeah.
I'll look it up, but let's go ahead and move on to. Oh, before we do, so that game ended, and a buddy of mine who lives in Tallahassee called me, and we're talking. And the game started at 7, so it ends about 10:30 or 11, somewhere in there. And on my TV turns the next game on ESPN, which was Houston at Oregon State. Undefeated Houston. Andre Ware's the commentator, by the way, who, if you don't remember, won a Heisman Trophy at Houston. They're undefeated, and they're playing at winless Oregon State. Final score is 27-24. I felt bad because Andre Ware's probably a nice guy. I don't love him as a color commentator, but I found myself rooting for Oregon State because Andre Ware was on the broadcast and because they don't have a win, and I wanted them to win. So I was a little upset that and yes, I stayed up till 2:30 to watch this game because, by gosh, it was Friday night into Saturday. I didn't have to wake up, to do anything. So I watched the whole game.
Right.
But my point with my buddy calling, I watched it on mute because we talked basically the entire game. So that was cool. And we don't talk about the Big 12, but that was interesting that game happened. And also went to overtime. It didn't even start till 11 o'clock Eastern. Yeah, all right. So I'm gonna look this up real quick. If you for Virginia, if you want to kick us off on the number 16 Georgia Tech, barely beating Wake Forest 30-29.
I mean, barely. Thank goodness for Georgia Tech. They have a good kicker. Because he saved their bacon a couple times so far this year, and Haynes King is playing very well for Georgia Tech. He's
for a 98-year-old.
Yeah. I mean, he's been around the game forever. He's not making the crucial mistakes. This is one again. This is not one I was watching religiously. It was popping up with the ESPN interjections and stuff there. The game I was watching, and this is one. It was Georgia Tech seemed like they were just fighting for survival. I mean, Wake Forest scored 17 points in the second. They went into halftime leading 17-3, and they put up 14 in the third quarter, but they were still trailing. I mean, again, it goes to overtime. Wake Forest, they score, but they don't get the extra point, and Georgia Tech does. But to have a program like Wake Forest, who just a few years ago was in the ACC championship game, to be struggling to remain relevant in the ACC. I mean, they were fighting tooth and nail in this one, and I mean, one stop in the fourth quarter, and they win the game. So, Georgia Tech, they're much improved. They're a real contender right now for the ACC, but they have to watch out for these. I'm not gonna call it a trap game, but when they're going into these games where the team they're playing is struggling, they can't play down to their level, because that seems like what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
They were up for Clemson, and they played Clemson well. But
Wake's tricky. Wake reminds me not of current Vanderbilt, because this is they're aliens, but of like typical Vanderbilt, where they are not always great, but they always play a handful of teams tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah. So by the way, so Virginia was in the 2019 Orange Bowl. So it was 1 year. I thought they went 2 years in a row, but they did go in 2019. So anyway, but yeah, so they've had a little bit of success, not a lot of success. But yeah, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's a good team though. They're going to continue to do good. But look, let's we're going to break our overtime streak, but we're going to move into we're going to start a new streak with the second Tech in a row. So Virginia Tech, who started the season 0-3, fired their coach, went to NC State and won their second straight game, 23-21. So Virginia Tech is 2-0 with their interim head coach. I know Quacker is concerned. We talked about this earlier in the episode. Is concerned a little bit about his alma mater being poached by Virginia Tech. But here's the other thing. I don't even know the interim coach's name. If he wins the rest of his games, the job's probably his. Now, he's not going to win the rest of them.
Yeah.
But, if they start 0-3 and then he takes over, and let's say he wins 5-6 games, you might not have to worry about Virginia Tech. We'll see. But congratulations to Virginia Tech. We here at the Alumni House love the underdog story, and we love seeing teams come from the grand void of despair and crawling out of it, like Bruce Wayne and Batman, or in Dark Knight Rises, the big hole that he climbs out of.
Yeah.
You weren't responding, so I was like, wait, I know you've seen that. All right. So thoughts on that game?
I mean, not a lot. I was just really happy to see that they were able to win their second consecutive game um, post uh, Brent Powell. Um, it's Virginia Tech is one of those programs like when we were coming up. I mean, they were always pretty good. Of course, they were in the Frank Beamer era, and it just goes to show you how good of a coach he actually was because Virginia Tech really wasn't a big program before he took over as head coach, and they have struggled mightily since he's retired. Um, so it really makes you appreciate just how good of a coach he was all the more. To see just how hard they've struggled since. I don't know that all these coaches that have been hired had just been terrible coaches. I just think that it's kind of a hard place to get talent in because I mean Clemson, Florida State, um, are they have forever been the big dog. Miami,
Miami has not been a big dog in the ACC.
No,
they were a big dog before the ACC, but
yeah, but and there's all these other programs and stuff that kind of draw the talent out of that area and stuff. And Beamer was able to keep them there, but I think it was just something about him. And I'm sure they're still getting talent out of the Virginia Beach area, but they're not developing it like they should to stay competitive. So,
well, and the problem with the Virginia Beach area though is that it's so transient with all the military there that I don't know how much. I mean, I'm sure there's talent there, but it's like any other highly active military area. You get talent there, but it's a luck of the draw, like whether they stay there or they wind up at some other military base, because they're 2 to 4 years and they're gone. So, unless they happen to be the child of a SEAL, in which case, if they're posted there, they're not leaving. But there's a lot of military there besides the SEALs. So, all right. So let's move into the busy SEC. And here's what I want to do. I want to talk about Bama, Georgia first, because the other 3 games happened all at the same time. And so I have little pieces of knowledge from all 3 of them. But I watched all of them on mute because I had to watch it on multi-view because thank you, ESPN and SEC, for scheduling all of these games together. Right. So, look, man, Bama wanted to give this game away, but they came out on fire. And you are not the person I'm talking to because you didn't say this. But what did I tell everybody? Calm the F down about Alabama. Like, Kalen DeBoer is going to be fine. He's going to be fine. He just beat Georgia. Everybody relax. All right?
Mm-hmm.
But they did try to give it away because I looked up and it was like 21-3. I looked up again, or 24 I don't know what it was, but I looked up and Georgia had scored 2 touchdowns quickly. So, but then that was all they scored because the final score is 24-21. What were your takeaways from this game?
This was on at the same time as the Southern Miss game. So, I was in the stadium and was just kind of vaguely keeping up with it. And I stayed after the Southern Miss game and was recording some band stuff because, they have like what they call a 5th quarter where they play a lot of their music stuff. And one thing Southern Miss has always done is they played Amazing Grace afterwards, and I was trying to wait and record that because I love their version of Amazing Grace, and they didn't do it, so I was really disappointed. So by the time I got to Buffalo Wild Wings afterwards to eat, this game was like all the scoring had taken place. So I mean, Alabama, they did all the scoring in the first half, and the defense just did enough in the second half to keep keep them in the lead. But yeah, I mean, Georgia did what they always do. They play them close, but they just can't get over the regular season hump of beating Alabama. I mean, like they beat them in the championship game, the national championship game. I think they may have beat them in conference title before, but I think they've only beat them. Yeah, so that's the only two times that Kirby Smart's beat them.
Oh no, you're talking about Georgia. I thought you were talking about Alabama. No, I don't know if they had. Maybe they did. I don't know. By the way, somebody wanted to say hi, so
yeah,
say hi to everybody. Wanted to talk a little sports with us. All right. Yeah. You're right, and I'm sure this one eats Kirby up because I know he wanted this one. Listen, I've a theory about Kirby Smart. I don't think he's going to leave. I don't think he's going to get fired. He is probably the best coach coaching right now. I think the wheels are falling off a little bit at Georgia, but here's what I mean. Yes, I know that this is a little bit of a down year for Georgia's roster, and they're still a very good team. They're still going to make the playoff. They'll probably make the playoff next year. He may win another title there. But with all of the discipline issues and the rhetoric, I mean, he talks the same way on the mic as Dabo does, just with a lot more cursing. They're both big babies, about everything. And Kirby, he's always advocating for this or that or whatever, but in kind of a whiny way. I have a feeling that his tenure at Georgia will end in the next 2 or 3 years, not because of a firing, not because the program is going to fall apart. I think it's going to be a similar situation, not 1-to-1, because I don't think there was a lot of turmoil in this one. But I think it's going to be similar to when Steve Spurrier left Florida. He also played at Florida, cared a lot about the school, but he left for an NFL job. I don't know that Kirby will leave for an NFL job. He may just take a year off or something like that or something. I know that's a hot take because he really is the best coach in college football, I think. But it seems like the well-oiled machine that they had during their first national championship run, you could start to see it teetering in the offseason between their repeat titles. And, last year was not super successful. You had all the distractions with Carson Beck, and you had an offense that was just off kilter. Now they've only lost one game. I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, but we're starting to see a consistent thread because Georgia hasn't looked that great this year. They've looked fine, but they haven't looked great. I think they've got another loss or two on their schedule. So that's my opinion. And I'm sure that people are going to hear that and be like, that is wild. But, I mean, sometimes coaches and institutions just need a change, not because the results aren't there, but because things are they just need to be shooken up, So,
yeah. Yeah, Alabama and LSU kind of feel similar this season with their offenses both just seem to be kind of stuck in neutral. I mean, in the case of LSU, we have a little context of injury and line play, but I mean Georgia, I'm hearing some stuff about line play there too. So maybe they're very similar as far as that goes. Now, Georgia's got the Georgia defense. That's what Kirby Smart's known for, is his defense. I mean, that's what he built his legacy on at Alabama. That's what he's built it on here at Georgia. But it's this feels like this, like you said, it could be one of his worst seasons, unless they can figure out a way to get the offense going. Who would think that his last great season would be with the mailman at quarterback?
Well, to be clear, I think Georgia's going to make the playoff, and I don't see Kirby Smart's tenure falling apart. That's why I compared it to Steve Spurrier.
I don't see it falling apart either.
Yeah, but that,
I wasn't saying that, but
No, but the reason I compared it to Steve Spurrier is they were a game away in '01 from making the national championship and had a Heisman runner-up at quarterback.
Yeah,
But things had gotten stale, and so you're right. Like, but I don't think it. When I say the wheels are falling off, I don't think. I think relatively speaking, just because of his demeanor, his personality, his inability to rein in the discipline issues. Like, look, I know you can't account for all of it, but tell me why Nick Saban had like 4 people get in trouble in 17 years. It was probably more than that, but it was not very many. And if there were, they were taken care of. And that's evidenced by the fact that you go into the NFL and you see, 3 or 4 former Saban players getting in trouble? Total?
yeah.
Jalen
The
Carter
worst
gets in
one.
trouble every freaking week.
Yeah,
And that's my point is it's like you can't hide from the discipline issues. That is a symptom of a bigger problem. You know what I mean? So, that's why Urban Meyer doesn't coach at Florida or Ohio State. He had discipline issues at both places. Great coach. Terrible discipline issues. You know what I mean?
yeah. It started his own life too, though. I mean, we just didn't know about it until later on.
Well,
With Jacksonville.
I don't even know what you mean by that.
He was basically cheating on his wife with like a college student at Ohio State.
I didn't even know that. Yeah, I had no idea. But my point is like their ability to rein in these young men, right?
Yeah.
Saban did it. And we
Saban
see
focused as much on character as he did
Yeah.
talent.
Yeah.
And it seems like Meyer and Smart, they see how many stars this player has.
Yeah.
And they
Now I think Meyer got better towards the end of his tenure at Ohio State because he realized that it mattered. And maybe Kirby Smart will get better, but it took Meyer leaving a major program, going to another major program, still having success, and then leaving that one. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. We'll see. I could be totally wrong. But before any Georgia fans get mad at me, I don't think Kirby Smart's a bad coach. I think he's the best coach in football right now. I think he loves Georgia. I think he will always love Georgia. It would not surprise me if he left either to take a year off or try the NFL just to get out of the rut. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes with it being his alma mater, the amount of pressure he puts on himself, could play, a factor in like a burnout issue or something like that with him. I mean, because you want to perform well everywhere, but when it's somewhere that you played at that you love, like Spurrier with Florida, with Kirby at Georgia, it's one of those things where you're probably putting even more pressure on yourself to be perfect, and that's why he's manufacturing these stories of where I'm being disrespected in the media and stuff, and nobody disrespects him. We've talked about it before. Like they're one of the most well written about outside of discipline issues. Nobody's like, oh well, this team they're going to struggle this year.
Well, the irony is what they disrespect is that.
Yeah.
Is that part of the character? But
yeah.
All right, so we're an hour 15 in, and I sort of derailed us from the beginning because we talked about the coaches. So let's hit quickly Tennessee, Mississippi State. All I have to say about this, kudos to Mississippi State. And Quacker didn't necessarily disagree. I don't remember what you said, but I don't remember you disagreeing. I said before the season started, because Mississippi State was picked last in the SEC, that I thought they would finish around 12th. Because I thought that they were going to be really competitive and have a good season. Well, I'm here to tell you that we just saw in week 5 them lose their first game, and in my opinion, they should be ranked.
Yeah.
After a loss. Because they are way better than I thought they were going to be. And I thought they were going to be good. I didn't think they were going to be this good. They beat Arizona State. Okay. Scadaboo's not there. Whatever. You could make the argument they still have most of their roster, but Scadaboo's not there, so whatever. Well, Tennessee comes to town. Tennessee's a different animal. And Mississippi State fought tooth and nail for that game. So that's all I have to say is to give Mississippi State their flowers because I think Tennessee beat a good team. I don't think Tennessee showed up unprepared. I just think Mississippi State's good, and they showed it.
Yeah, it felt like Tennessee had to give everything they had and more to win that game, and they did. But it felt like it took every bit of talent that they had on the field and every bit of coaching savvy that Josh Heupel has to win that game. Like you never felt like State was fixing to get overrun at any point.
Well, Mississippi State plays A&M at A&M, I'm pretty sure, next week, and then at Florida. They're going to beat Florida. They might beat A&M. Like, they could win both of those games. So, they're a good team. They've got some good things coming. Listen, they're going to be a team at the end of the year. We're talking about the difference in 1 or 2 games for making the playoff. I am not saying they're going to make the playoff. What I'm saying is that week 10, 11, 12, we're going to be like, man, if they just did this, they'd be in the playoff conversation. I think they're going to be on the edge because they're going to beat some teams this year.
I don't know that I'm willing to go that far with it yet, but I think they're very close.
Well, but if you look at their schedule, would you say it's conceivable they could go 9-3 or 8-4? Because if they go 8-4 or 9-3, they're a play here or a play there away from being in the conversation. That's what I'm saying. I think this is at least an 8-win team. And an 8-win team in the modern SEC is a fringe playoff contender. Not fringe playoff team, fringe playoff contender.
Yeah, all right. So they go to Texas A&M, then they go to the Swamp, then they host Texas, then they go to Arkansas, then they host Georgia, then they go to Mizzou, and then they host Ole Miss for the Egg Bowl.
So they beat Florida, they beat Arkansas. What was the one you said before Arkansas? Was that Georgia?
Texas.
Okay, then Georgia, and then Ole Miss. Those are the other
Georgia,
teams.
Missouri.
Oh, I think they'll beat Missouri. I think they will, based on the way they've performed so far. And then all you're asking at that point is for them to win one of those other games, which would you be surprised if they won the Egg Bowl the way they're playing this year? I wouldn't.
No, I think this is going to be one of the more compelling Egg Bowls we've had in a while here.
So that's my point. It's not that I think Mississippi State's going to light the world on fire and win every game. But if they end the season with 4 losses, they're close to being in the conversation. That's all my point is not, oh great, well you're close. That only counts in hand grenades and horseshoes. My point is everyone picked them last. And this is a team that's going to be ranked at the end of the year, I bet you. Or close. They may not be ranked because they do have some losses coming. But they're going to be right on the cusp. So all right, so Auburn and Texas A&M. Actually, no, let's back up. Let's go to Ole Miss LSU. Weird game because Ole Miss came out on fire. I expected this to be a blowout, and I was wrong. This is like the only major game that I got right that Quacker got wrong. But I told him before we started, he was actually more right than I was because I thought it was going to be a blowout, and it was a very close game at the end. LSU's offense looked anemic a little bit, but they had their moments. Now I'm gonna be like I said, full disclosure here. I watched this game on mute, so depending on the moment in the game, I was missing certain things. So when I say the LSU offense looked anemic, they may not have looked anemic, but they didn't look. No, I mean, they looked okay. I was gonna say they looked consistent with how they have most of the year, but so not sure what's going on there. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but the one thing that Quacker and I both were a little confused about. LSU was number 4, went on the road, lost the game by 5 points to number 13. LSU drops to 13, which typically signifies that it's a bad quality loss, like it's not of high quality when you drop that far 9 spots by 5 points. But Ole Miss conversely, jumped up from 13 to 4. So they just switched spots. What doesn't make sense about that, like I can see number 13 beating number 4, pushing them in the top 5 in a certain scenario. But in that scenario, previous number 4 moves to like 7 or 8 at the worst. So this was weird. You're totally giving the flowers to Ole Miss for winning the game, but you're telling LSU, well, you should have won. So
yeah, kick rocks. Yeah, the only thing I could think of is because of how bad the offense looks right now. You know, and you know they've been talking about the core injury that that Nuss has been struggling with. It must be worse than we think it is. The line is still playing terrible because Ole Miss was rushing 3 for most of the day and still getting the Nussmeier. LSU still couldn't run the ball. I was worried about the line for LSU going into this season, and it looks like those concerns were legit. You know, I mean, LSU was doing a good job of holding Ole Miss in check, offensively to begin with, but it was 50 plays to 23 in the first half. Ole Miss is on the field offensively for 50 plays. LSU was exhausted. Like Whitwicks is on the field throwing up at one point because they were just going and going and going. And you know, they've got to get their offense figured out. They have a championship caliber defense. The offense is the issue right now, and it's weird with Brian Kelly as head coach thinking the offense is the issue, but they've got to get this figured out in fast. They have a week off here to get it figured out. You know, I wouldn't even let Nuss do anything. Go in to the football office and go to the trainer's office and recover. Just whatever he has to do to get over this core injury. You know, you're not picking up a football and throwing it. You can put on the VR headset and go through looking stuff, over, but that's it. You're not picking up a football. You're not lifting weights. You're just recovering. And we're going to work on back to camp basics with the line. We've got to get this line figured out. If you're LSU, Kelly and his offensive coordinator, his line coach, they've got to get together this week and hammer this home, because this is going to be the Achilles heel for this team all season. That the defense is finally in place. You have a chance with this defense to go do something that you're expected to do at LSU, and now the offense is holding you back. The offense has carried this team for the last 3 years. The 1 year that he has the defense, and now his offense is struggling. So, he's got to get this figured out quick.
Yeah. Yep, and the problem is if he doesn't, I think the question becomes, does he lose all of the grace that he got, or the good grace he got back for finally winning an opener? Because the reality is LSU has not looked very good all year. What their defense has, but I mean, as a team collectively, they've looked good enough to win their games, but they have not looked like you could see a game like this happening, where you mess around enough and you get bit. You know what I mean? But you're right. Comes at a good time. Give them a little break. Let them recover. Get Nussmeier healthy. All right. So final game on our slate. This is another game that Quacker and I disagreed on, but man, it was a good game. So unranked Auburn went to number 9 Texas A&M and lost the game 16-10. It was a good game, but Oklahoma had yet another game where they just had 34 sacks. Felt like they had a ton. I think they had like 8 sacks in that game, for real, including one to end the game. You talked about Brian Kelly and his offense. That's kind of where I'm at with Freeze, because it's not like Freeze has a history as a head coach of having an offense that scores 80 points a game, but they score, and they have really struggled. So I have a nephew who goes to Auburn. I told him over and over again, listen, you got to get in his first couple of years, you got to give Freeze time. There's only so much you can do with Peyton Thorne. Well, now he doesn't have Peyton Thorne. He has Jackson Arnold, and they're still not very good on offense. And I don't know what you do. I mean, they're clearly good on defense. They're in games. They're just not winning.
Yeah. It's like I was talking about.
Sorry.
I saw
that was extreme. This is what their first loss of the year, but they
second.
But and they were both in the same fashion, so they are winning, but they're not winning as much as they would like to win.
Yeah. I was talking about this the other day with Jackson Arnold. He's holding the ball too long, and I saw so many threads on X about him holding the ball, and I even saw one of these that said find somebody to hold you like Jackson Arnold holds onto the football. I was like, well, that's pretty clever. It's just one of those things that he's indecisive, and it's hurting him. He's getting sacked. 10 times last week, 8 times this week. He's got to get the ball out. It's not like A&M was gangbusting in this game. I mean, they didn't have a passing touchdown. They had a rushing touchdown. But, a Hugh Freeze offense only scoring 10 points is criminal. So, he's the same thing. He's got to get back to the drawing board. He's got to figure out some way to get Arnold to get the ball out of his hands. Because if he's going to sit there and hold the ball all game,
yep,
that's not how you complete a forward pass. That's not how you move the ball down the field. And I saw him play live last year for Oklahoma when they came to Baton Rouge. I wasn't that impressed with him last year. I haven't really been impressed with him this year. So maybe it's time to look at whoever the backup is and put him in. If he can get rid of the ball, if he's not as talented as Arnold, if he can get rid of the ball and be decisive.
Well, a lot of times that's an indicator that you don't have a good backup option. Not always. Sometimes you see a Tom Brady situation where the backup comes in and they light the world on fire, but it doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. I'm sorry. It's very late. All right. So, last thing I want to do before we end this longer episode, but it was good. There was a lot to talk about, and like I said, we're getting into that part of the season where there's a lot more than just football to talk about, which is fun. It's fun to do that. So, last week, coming out of the week, Quacker had a 1-game lead on me. He was 12-13, and I was 11-14. Well, Quacker did better than me this week. So, Quacker is now 24-16. So, he is a solid 8 games above 500, doing real good. I, however, am 20-21. So, I just realized that my math doesn't make sense because I have one more game than you. I'm 20-20. Sorry, not 20-21. Yep. Because I went 9-6 this week. Quacker went 12-3, which is better than me. But I will say, for whatever it's worth, the 3 games that he had on me almost went the other way because they were all excellent games. So, congratulations to Quacker. You've got a good solid lead on me right now, but we've got a little more than half the season to see if I can't catch up. So, all right. So with that, Quacker, where can people find the show?
So you can find us on X at Alumni House Pod. You can find us on Facebook. Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, all with the handle Alumni House Podcast. I think that may be all of our handles at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard to remember at this point because we're trying to get everywhere. So
Yeah. So if you want to catch us, then just right there. Check these out right here. Quacker can't do that because he can't see his. But just look opposite the screen if you want Quackers. So with that, I'm getting delirious and tired. So we need to get off the air. But as always, I want to thank you guys for joining us in the house. Make sure that you check us out on Wednesday night for Southbound, an NFL podcast where we will discuss all things NFL. And hey, we're going to talk about the Saints almost doing something that nobody thought they were going to do. And by almost, I mean not really almost, but way closer than it should have been. So if that teases you and you're in suspense, then tune in Wednesday night for Southbound. We'll be back Thursday with Alumni House for our Week 6 preview. You guys have a great week, and as always, thank you for joining us.